Welcome back, listeners, to another thrilling episode of Relationship Hunt, where I, Red, dive deep into the captivating tales of love, heartbreak, and everything in between. So stay tuned for an exciting roller coaster of emotions, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. I'm overreacting, right? I think my mom has tried to have me admitted to some sort of institution on one or two occasions. The first instance was when I was around 21 years old and had ended a relationship with a guy I was falling for. It was a heartbreaking situation for me, and one night at around 3 a.m., unable to sleep, I decided to take a walk around my neighborhood to clear my mind. I didn't inform my parents about leaving, so when they saw my room empty, they panicked, which was understandable considering the late hour. My mother called the police and my close friends, and she proceeded to tell them that I was mentally unwell and planning to harm myself over this man. However, this was not true. As I was walking back home, a police car approached me and gave me a ride home, resolving the situation. The next instance occurred around the same time when I was 21 years old. I had chosen to have an abortion, which greatly upset my mother. She called me various names and expressed her pro-life beliefs, but I remained firm in my decision and refused to argue with her. Throughout my life, I had always been clear about not wanting children, so I'm not sure why she was shocked by my choice to abort. Perhaps she held the false belief that becoming pregnant or having a baby would change my mind. Despite my explanation, she was cruel towards me, calling me a murderer and threatening to kick me out. She insisted I have the baby regardless of the circumstances, but she didn't seem to care about what would happen to the child afterwards. As someone who has adopted myself, I knew firsthand the challenges of the adoption system, and I didn't want to subject a child to that. I couldn't believe that she felt entitled to dictate what I should do with my own body and put my life at risk when I genuinely didn't want to continue the pregnancy. Just a few days ago, I discovered that my mom, who had access to my medical records at the time due to a consent form I had signed earlier, had been spreading false information to family members and medical professionals. She claimed that I was abusing drugs, alcohol, and attempting to induce a miscarriage through various means. She also said that I was self-harming. None of these allegations were true. I followed the proper procedures at a clinic, ensuring my safety and well-being. Learning this made me feel like my mom was trying to have me institutionalized in order to force me to continue the pregnancy. Although this happened a while ago, I don't feel like I have the right to be upset about it since nothing actually happened to me and I turned out alright. However, I find it extremely difficult to even look at my mom or feel any positive emotions towards her. The love and care that I had for her as my mom and as a person completely disappeared the moment I discovered the truth. I'm not sure what to do now. I believe the first step is to limit contact with my mom, and I have already decided with my fiancé that she will not be invited to our wedding. Moving forward, we have made the decision to exclude her from our lives entirely. I am still in a state of shock and confusion about everything that has transpired. That sounds like such a difficult and messed up situation. It's so disappointing when parents don't respect our choices and boundaries. Going low contact and not inviting her to the wedding seems like a good step for self-preservation. It's understandable that you're still in shock. Something like that would definitely shake anyone's trust and feelings towards their parent. Am I the antagonist for refusing to be adopted to present this nicely packaged story to my young step-siblings when they're older? My dad got married to Eve last year. Eve has 2 kids. Her son is 4 now, and her daughter is 2. There's a lot of backstory and complex relationships with their paternal side of the family, but they really had nobody other than Eve until my dad and Eve met. Once they got married, my dad adopted them. Then my dad's relatives didn't want the kids to be treated the same as the rest of the grandchildren and told my dad they would never mean as much to them as the rest of the biological family would, so he told them to get lost and cut ties with them. When all 3 other sides, Dad's, Eve's, and the kids' paternal side, were basically not involved, my dad asked my mom's family. My mom died when I was 2. If they would embrace my step-siblings as family and treat them the way they would treat me because they were now my siblings and my family, and I loved them. It was important for me to see them being embraced by my family. My family actually asked me if what Dad said was true, and I told them it wasn't. I said I hardly even knew the kids, let alone loved them. My family told my dad they would never see my step-siblings as their grandchildren. I should also clarify that my dad and maternal family did not remain close or maintain a family-like relationship after my mom died. I still saw my family, but my dad was never involved, and he would spend time with his own family when I was with mine. I never liked my dad's family, so it was never a big deal to not see them, and it's not a big deal to not have them around at all. They were always really annoying about how feminine I am, and they could never believe that I would want to pursue a manly job after I graduate. Eve was pretty depressed when she realized she hadn't expanded her kids' family much, and that they had faced even more rejection. So my dad decided that we would be a tight-knit unit, and we would all choose each other so that they would know they were chosen and loved despite all the rejection. My dad decided that for this to fully work, I should let Eve adopt me. I refused without listening to anything else, and I told him that Eve would never adopt me, and I don't care how much of a nice story it creates for her kids, because I am not doing it for them. He told me that they are young, and Eve said it would mean so much to them. Dad told me that part of being an older sibling is putting the younger kids' needs first. I told them that the kids were never going to be my priority, and I would never go out of my way to do something like that for them. Dad offered a compromise of me writing and signing a contract, saying that I would always be their older brother, and that I was lucky to have 2 awesome siblings, to which I also said no. Then the adoption issue was pushed further. Eve tried telling me that I would still be able to call her Eve most of the time, but just call her mom in front of her kids. Dad told me I was being selfish for refusing to do this, and reiterated that the kids should be our priority. Am I the asshole? It's completely understandable that you're not comfortable with being adopted by Eve, especially if you don't have a close relationship with her or her kids. Your dad and Eve shouldn't be pressuring you into this and trying to guilt trip you. It's important for all family members to have boundaries and to prioritize their own feelings and comfort. Am I the antagonist for yelling at a guy on a bike who ignored my warnings not to get too close to my young horse? In the United Kingdom, horses are very common, and there are separate trails where they have the right of way. This is different from the United States, and all UK residents are taught about the right of way of horses in their driving tests. There was a path for bikes and walkers only adjacent, and we are in an area where horses are very common, and most people know to avoid them and ask to interact with them. I own several horses and train horses that have never been handled to be ridden, and I have been riding for 10 years now. My pony is Prince, a 5-year-old Connemara. Prince is not a rescue. We bought him last year. He is young and scared of bicycles. He snorts and prances, but as long as they aren't too loud or close enough to touch, he doesn't buck or kick. I always talk to the bikes if they are coming too close. I normally do this by calling, "Excuse me, can you slow down?" He's scared of bikes, but I often don't need to. I was riding him down one of my favorite trails that is about 2 meters wide. I meet a bike on here about once every time I go down there. He has never misbehaved, and I think it helps desensitize him. However, that day, a rainy Sunday when it would normally be deserted, there were around 30 13-14-year-olds on bikes with headphones in, so they could not hear me. By the time I realized there were more than normal, I could not turn around because he gets far more upset when they come from behind. I pulled him off the path and walked him along the thin grass verge to try and get him as far from them as possible. I did consider dismounting, but he tends to get more agitated and less easy to control on the ground. By the time most of them had passed, I had to pull him back onto the path because there were dense trees on either side. At that point, he spotted an abandoned shopping trolley, and I let him look at it and move past at his own speed, as the path was empty apart from a family about 20 behind us just entering the tree area and blocking us in. He was cycling toward us, and I could feel an already anxious Prince approaching boiling point, and I asked him to slow down or possibly dismount his bike. He didn't. If anything, he sped up and said, "Why?" I said quite loudly because he was getting close. "He's really scared of bikes." And Darren said, "How is that my problem?" in a really passive-aggressive voice. I completely lost it, and I yelled, "It becomes your problem when he kicks you and puts you in the hospital and breaks your bike, and you have to pay because you broke the highway code." The dad from the family behind me starts saying, "Just stop, man," and Prince is starting to rear, and I'm concerned for his safety and mine because the path is concrete, so I push him as far into the trees as he will go while Darren cycles merrily on his way while swearing at me. He also nearly cycled into the stroller of the family behind on purpose, so the mom had to jump out of the way. It took me ages to calm Prince down, and it has majorly set us back in training. My dad says that I shouldn't have yelled at him. Am I the asshole? It sounds like you handled the situation as best as you could, given the circumstances. It's frustrating when people don't understand the right of way for horses, especially when you're trying to keep yourself and your horse safe. In my opinion, you're definitely not the antagonist in this scenario. Wife cheated on me and I don't know what to do. My partner and I have been together for 15 years, married for 7, and we have a 2-year-old child. We have been attending couples counseling for a few months now. She has also been undergoing individual therapy for about a year. She has been dealing with postpartum depression, PPD, and premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. Both of us have struggled with alcohol in the past. She was afraid that if we didn't seek help, our marriage would end in divorce. Despite my reluctance to engage in counseling indefinitely, I agreed to go with the understanding that we would acquire tools to help our relationship and work together to resolve our issues. After 8 sessions, I expressed my desire to discontinue counseling, feeling that we had made progress and gained new tools to improve our relationship. However, she disagreed. In our last session, a massive argument erupted because I wanted to stop counseling while she wanted to continue. Amidst this turmoil, she broke down and tearfully confessed to cheating on me 13 years ago. She cheated on me with an old high school friend whom I had never known or met. At the time, we had relocated to a new town together for work and didn't know many people there. I have always been accepting of her having male friends, both gay and straight. However, something felt different about this particular situation. I expressed my discomfort with her spending time and drinking with this guy, but she disregarded my concerns. The guy would call her at night, and I had gut feeling she was being unfaithful, so I confronted her about it. She denied it, lying directly to my face. Soon after, she concocted a story claiming that he was persistently calling and bothering her, coercing me into talking to him and asking him to stop. We arranged a meeting where he arrived with a friend, and I brought my then girlfriend. We discussed the situation, and at the end, I told him to stop calling her, to which he agreed. As far as I know, that was the end of it. It hurt me back then, and it hurts just as much now. Even as my gut told me she was cheating on me, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I chose to move on because I believed her. Unfortunately, all those old feelings of pain and betrayal are resurfacing now. I can't stop thinking about the two of them being intimate. She claims she cheated because she felt lonely and had issues with drinking at the time. According to her, it only happened once, but I am unsure if I can believe that. She has apologized repeatedly and assures me it won't happen again. She is now my wife, and we have a child together. She no longer drinks or does drugs and has transformed into a different person compared to 13 years ago. She confessed because she was overwhelmed by guilt, particularly due to my previous doubts about the paternity of our first child, which caused her significant distress. I am angry and feel foolish. I still love her, but I no longer trust or respect her. My instinct tells me to leave, but we have a young child. Should I trust her again and leave myself vulnerable to heartbreak? I don't want to discard the life we have built together, but I struggle to see how we can recover from this situation. Maybe we are merely forcing something that is beyond salvation? Hey there, sorry to hear that you're going through such a tough situation. It's understandable that you're feeling hurt and betrayed right now. Trust is a really important factor in any relationship, and it's tough to rebuild once it's been broken. Ultimately, the decision of whether to stay or leave is something only you can make, but it might be helpful to seek advice from a professional counselor or therapist who can guide you through this process. Good luck, man. My father is dying of brain cancer, and I'm not sure I have the courage to visit him. My father is currently facing a terminal illness, brain cancer. It appears that his condition is progressively deteriorating. I'm unsure about whether I should gather the courage to visit him during this time. There are two main reasons that are causing hesitation and further delaying my decision. The first reason is that I don't want to witness him in his current state. He is confined to his bed, experiencing physical decline and losing his sense of self. I have always known him as a lively and energetic individual, constantly making jokes and moving about. Now he is constantly fatigued, sleeping, and slow to respond. The second reason is my fear of flying, which poses a significant obstacle. There is no direct flight to the location where he is, and it would require a connecting flight with a total travel time of around 7.59 hours, followed by an additional 2-3-hour flight. Furthermore, my father moved back to our home country when I was in high school, and he has since started a new family. He now has a second child, who is my only sibling and is currently 9 years old. It brings me joy to know that he has found love and happiness with his new family, and that he is surrounded by supportive relatives who live nearby and frequently visit him. I have visited my home country multiple times in the past, and as recently as the summer of 2022, staying there for a month. During these visits, we created many meaningful memories together for which I am grateful. I'm aware that most people would advise me to visit him, even if it's just for a week, before his condition worsens or he eventually passes away. However, I find myself grappling with multiple factors causing stress and uncertainty. I don't believe that I would regret not seeing him before he passes, as I am confident that he will be surrounded by loved ones until the end. Additionally, I take comfort in knowing that he is proud of my achievements and that I have fulfilled his aspirations for me. The main reason for my desire to see him now is for his sake, so that he can see me one last time. Ultimately, I am inclined to believe that it would be in my best interest to make the journey, despite my conflicted feelings. I acknowledge that my emotions may be clouding my judgment, making me question my intentions and character. To summarize, my father is currently battling cancer and resides approximately 12 hours away, with a connecting flight required to visit him. I am hesitant for several reasons, including his deteriorated state and my fear of flying. I am seeking advice and guidance. Hey, I understand that you're going through a tough time right now. It's completely understandable that seeing your father in his current state is difficult for you, especially considering how you remember him. And the fear of flying is a real thing that can add more stress to the situation. It's ultimately your decision, but it might be worth considering going to visit him at least for a short period of time, just so he can see you and you can have some closure. My BF keeps gifting me trips that require me to pay for things I can't afford. Me, female 25, and my boyfriend, male 27, have been in a relationship for about 3 years. The issue we're facing is that we come from different backgrounds. While he comes from a high-income middle-class family that travels several times a year, I come from a lower middle-class family and we only go on vacation once a year. I want to clarify that I didn't grow up struggling and I am grateful for what I had during my upbringing. However, this slight difference in background has shaped our perspectives on vacations and trips. He loves traveling and sees it as a hobby, whereas for me, it's not that I don't enjoy it, but rather that it is a luxury. Consequently, it's not always among my top priorities. When we first met, I was still studying and didn't have any income, while he was already working and saving money. During that first year, he gifted me plane tickets for a trip, which we ultimately couldn't go on due to the pandemic. However, he still expected me to cover the costs of food and the hotel, which makes sense, but considering my lack of income, I had to ask my parents for the money. At that time, I explained to him that while I appreciated his gift, it put a lot of financial stress on me because I had to figure out a way to pay for accommodations for a trip I didn't plan and didn't particularly want to take. He claimed to understand my perspective, but the following year he again offered me plane tickets. I once again communicated my concerns, and he apologized for his actions but expressed his desire to travel with me. We ended up going since the tickets were non-refundable, and my parents gave me the necessary funds as an early birthday Christmas gift. This year, 2023, I started working and saved up some money, so we planned a trip together in September and went for a whole week. I was proud of myself for finally being able to afford it and not feeling guilty about indulging in travel. Since then, my boyfriend has gone on 2 more trips with his friends and family. Now, 4 months later, as our anniversary approaches, he informed me that he has bought me plane tickets for another trip. Unfortunately, the company I worked for went bankrupt last month, and I was laid off. I do have some savings and could technically cover the cost of accommodations for this new trip. However, until I find a new job, traveling and spending my savings is not a top priority for me. Moreover, I don't see the need to travel again so soon after our previous trip. However, my boyfriend has been mentioning the costs of accommodation, stating that the cheapest option he found is around $300. I don't want to be rude and tell him he's being inconsiderate, but I also don't want to go on the trip and spend that much money. I understand the need to make exceptions for our partners, and I should make an effort considering that he loves to travel. I don't want to come across as ungrateful, but I genuinely believe my concerns are not unreasonable. It sounds like there's a clear difference in how you and your boyfriend perceive traveling due to your backgrounds. While your boyfriend sees it as a hobby, you view it as a luxury. You've expressed your concerns about the financial strain in the past, yet he continues to offer plane tickets without considering your current circumstances. It's understandable that you don't want to spend a significant amount of money on accommodations right now, especially given your recent job loss. Communicating your feelings honestly and openly with him might help find a solution that works for both of you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.